Hello, everyone. This is Robert Miller with GotSport. This is going to be the Region A for FYSA kind of guide to get prepared for the 22-23 season. Waiting on just a few more people to join in based on the signups. So let's give it another minute or two. Then if no one hops in, we'll go ahead and get started.
Thanks, Robbie.
All right, haven't seen anyone join yet. So like I said, this is the preparation for the 22-23 season going into GotSport Year 2 for FYSA. We do have the FYSA office on the call here, so we'll go ahead and turn it over to them. So you guys feel free to take the show.
Hey, Robbie, as always, we really appreciate your time, and I thank everybody for being on tonight. You won't have to listen to me speak too much tonight, but we do, per usual, want to be respectful of Robbie's time and GotSport. There are other ones of these scheduled for the other regions, so if you don't get the information you want today, please contact us in the future. But I'm going to turn it over to Alice. We've got a really tight 1 hour here. And off the bat, there are some definite changes that we're going to run through first. So outside of this just being a normal demonstration, please listen first to some of the enhancements that we've made. We've as Robbie mentioned, been with GotSport for a full year now. We've done a lot of trainings with them, a lot of meetings weekly, twice a week, trying to advocate to make matters easier for you guys. So that's really what tonight's all about. And first, I'm going to turn it over to Alice here.
I want to say good evening to everyone, and thanks everyone for taking out the time of your busy schedule to come on tonight and just pick up some new information that we have regarding the upcoming year for FYSA and registration. One of the big things I want to start off with, we're going to open the registration event up on July 18th this year, not August 1st. You will be able to print passes and rosters on July 18th, not August 1st. So you'll be ready to go because over the years, we have allowed clubs and tournaments and leagues have started their season off the first and second week of August. And when we open up August 1st, it puts a tight squeeze on all the registrars. So I'm trying to allow each one of you to have a quick 2 weeks or maybe 2.5 weeks to get ahead of the game. If you have any problems, you're not 2 days out before the event take place. So the registration event this year will open up on July 18th. You'll be able to print passes and rosters as you would have on August 1st in the past years. So I hope you're putting your teams together, getting ready for that big day on July 18th. Our next big open up, and I'm gonna let Joel discuss this one, is direct registration of all players into FYSA event this year. Joel?
Thank you. I do, before I get into that, want to recognize several people on this call who have been really instrumental. First and foremost, Alice. Everybody knows our registrar, Alice. She has just done a ton of work for us, and we can't thank her enough for her expertise and knowledge, but also all the people who have been working on the registration manual and handbook. It has been a tireless, long effort. Again, they're meeting weekly, but very quickly, Michelle Garneau-Quick, Jennifer Murphy, Sarah Schneider, Jackie Cannon, Ingrid Spence. Who else am I forgetting on there, Alice, outside of yourself?
Joel, you taking my
thunder. Melissa Howard. Melissa Howard, I'm sorry.
That was going to be my end of the meeting announcement, but that's Melissa Howard as well, and Lisa Warner up in the Region D area, and other people who have contributed along the way. So we will be talking about that near the end of the meeting, when we're going to disclose that.
these people have put in a tremendous amount of effort again to make this registration process easier for you guys throughout the last year. So thank you on behalf of FYSA. I do want to talk just really briefly on direct registration. And Robbie, whenever you're ready to share your screen, feel free to interrupt me talking. But this is some functionality that actually did go back to the old legacy system. We are going to be, I guess the best word that I can use is divorcing the process of pass card creation and roster creation and registration to FYSA. And with a lot of the decisions that we make, and Jennifer, I know you will agree to this, it's rooted in the liability that FYSA puts out there and insurance. Starting in the fall season, and this is very important, we are going to register players directly to the FYSA event. Registration will not happen via your team. Now, this is only registration in the idea of getting the players insured. We have far too often had to reject insurance claims because players weren't properly registered. Over the last couple months, huge credit to Michelle and Jennifer have been out there collecting registrations from our members. And a lot of times we get the response, hey, they're in our system. We thought they were registered. Many of you know the experienced registrars that know that you needed to put them on teams and put them on event. That will not be the case in the fall season. You will put players into the event who you intend to register with FYSA through a different process. And Robbie, I'll let you show how easy this process is. I don't want to use the word individually. You can do it individually, but you can also put players into the event in mass in order to ensure they're registered.
Yeah, so just to, quick correction on that. It doesn't actually put them into the registration event per se, where all the teams are registered. What this actually does, this will put the player into the registration pool, in which shows on the FYSA side, to where they manage all the registrations, looking at all those initial registrations that are billable to you guys, the clubs. So it's essentially the same scenario. The traditional method is you guys register a team to the registration event, then you place place that player on a team roster within that event, and that's what creates that registration to the state. This basically eliminates that step for at least your recreational players, so that way you're not putting 60 players on one team. So what it does, it will just literally just create the registration to the FYSA. So that they can see the registration that player is now insured. It just basically eliminates the process of building a roster for players that do not necessarily need player passes, so players that do not travel, stuff like that. So how this actually works is, if we go to club management and players, there's a drop down right here. So there's two methods to do this. So one method would be if you use us for, GotSport player registration, or if you use a third party for registration. Either would work, but the way to do that, depending on which one you do, if you use us for GotSport player registration, you'd most likely just add a filter for, get rid of these two filters right here, add a filter for player program, and filter by the program that those current players are registered in. So this will give you a list of the current players that are registering to your club at the start of the fall 2022 season. So what that will do, show your player list right here. All you would have to do right here, select this top checkbox, then select all the players in that collection. Then you have this register button right here. You click register, then you're going to send players to Florida Youth Soccer Association for the seasonal year of 22-23 at that level that you are registering for them. So this will create a registration to the state for those players based upon the level that you do. So if you guys do a recreational player right here, that's going to create that recreational registration for that player, and you guys would be billable, considered billable from FYSA for that amount that recreational players cost. Then you would just hit register right there, and that submits the player directly to the state. Completely eliminates the process of building a roster for those recreational teams. As Joel mentioned, you are going to be expected to do this for all your players. So first you do recreational. So you might want to filter by recreational players first. Then you do it for competitive. This will, in effect, ensure that everybody is going to be registered to the state before they can be rostered to a team. So for those players that are going to be rostered to a team, that's when you go that initial step of registering that team to the registration event and placing that player onto that team roster, and the ability to print that player's pass in that team's roster.
Nothing is changing on the creation of pass cards and rosters. Robbie, I apologize about mentioning the registration event. That's no longer a part of this. But this is, as you saw there, about 2 to 3 extra clicks to ensure that we're receiving all of the player registration and all the players that you intend to register with us. So we don't think that this is a monumental shift in the way that you do it. In fact, for some of those who have registered players late in the season, you know that we have allowed registration through this route just within the last couple months, particularly on the recreational side. So the functionality's been there, and this is just steps to ensure that we're receiving all of your player registration and that you are registering all the players that you intend. So Alice, did I miss anything in that?
No, the only thing I would just say now, when you get ready to do your rosters and passes, you still would go back and do your roster building, build your teams like normal, and therefore you will have your rosters and passes printed. And this process will help your in-house players as far as recreational, where you don't have to make all little teams of 50 or 100 or 200. You can click them all at one time. This will help with your top players. You can just put them all in, and then all your top players are registered at one event. So you don't have to go back and make a team that call tops and be able and have to register them in. But you still, when you want your rosters and passes, you still would have to build your teams over in the roster builder to be able to do your rosters and passes, get passes printed and rosters. So this is just registering into FYSA on the back end, where they would know you'd be able to insure your players, because they get into the office claims where the player has been practicing and playing and not even on a team because someone failed to add them to the team. They may even be playing on a recreational team. And so this way, everyone is covered. So it's just a couple of clicks, and then you go back to your normal process if you need to do rosters and passes.
Hopefully that makes sense. Tom, I saw your question in there. We are going to collect all registration, whether it's competitive or recreational or tops. We have some other ones out there, age group, via this process. Nothing changes with rostering and passes, but we will need your registration through the couple clicks that Robbie just showed for all of your players.
Okay.
I am good on the direct registration if you want to move to the next one and look for some specific instructions coming out for that very soon, guys.
Okay, the next item we're going to talk about is club pass versus secondary players. In the past, we have our club pass that most everybody should be familiar with. But also in the registration event, we was using a process called secondary players. Secondary players is really the same as club pass. That secondary player in the registration event will no longer be. You will be club passing all players. Now, remember, if you club pass a player and you're playing for a particular league, you still have to go by that league. And if the league said only have 5 club passes, you still would have to only have 5 club passes. But in some cases, if you're doing a league that doesn't matter how many secondaries and club passes you have, everybody's club pass. The only time a player will be secondary is between 2 clubs. Club A is sending a primary player over to Club B. That's a secondary because that have to be approved by the office. So that's the only time the word secondary will be used. Everybody else will be club pass going forward. Now, in the registration event, all players are club pass. So that's one thing different that will be this year. So all players are club pass. The next thing on our agenda item is competitive players. We have been talking about this over the years. No competitive player will be rostered or carded unless they're birth verified. And that is the birth verified, where you as the club is responsible for going in and birth verifying it. And then FYSA, over the years, I know we would have people say yes and no, and maybe so, but we put some procedure in place that we will be doing the checks out there to making sure that everything is verified, and a player would not be rostered or carded without being verified. Rec players, we will still allow them to go through, but this year all competitive, because a lot of the tournaments, we had this discussion in one of our meetings with our registrars in the registrar event, that is terrible when we get to different tournaments and their players are not verified and they're competitive. So all competitive players would not be able to be rostered or pass printed without them being verified, birth verified. The next process that we have this year, I noticed that a lot of questions came up about the word not registered players. That was one of the things in the legacy system. But the process this year is archiving players. And now archiving players and coaches. You, Rob, if you want to show them the process of archiving, but one of the main steps I would say that you must show in archiving is your coaches, because you do not want a coach to go out and do a background check and you be charged for it when that coach is no longer with your team or no longer allowed to coach. So you would be charged for that background check. So archiving for the coaches and even team managers, I will bring team managers out as well. So team managers and coaches is two groups that I would say you must archive. On archiving your players, if you archive all your players that's not going to be any part of your club this year, you put them to the side and that's fine. And then you don't have to see them when you get ready to do direct registration. You won't make the mistake of picking up a player that is no longer with your club. You archive your players out. But that's not something that I would say you have to do, but that would be wise if you do archive your players. Because when you go to the new registration event, I know one of the things everybody's gonna raise their hand, the release of players, or how I get a player from another club, because we had a lot of fallout this year about players at another club, and I cannot roster them to another team in my club because they still show roster there. The registration event for 22-23 clears all that out. You start out brand new. So on July 18th, if you roster a player to your team at 10 o'clock, and that's where you have all your paperwork to show that they belong to you, and if somebody at 2 o'clock try to register that player on July 18th, that they came to your tryout and you have the information, they will not be able to register, because at 10 o'clock, you have primary registered player. And as far as, and we have also covered, I know the question will come up on players that was put in not in good standing. We have already billed those teams. We have got them ready to go into the registration event. The ladies in the office, Michelle and Jennifer, have been working very hard on the not in good standing and sent the letters out until we get those cleared out for the 21-22 season. Those players are already on a team until we get the information from the clubs to know that they have been cleared out. Those players will be on that team when we put those teams will be the first team to go into the registration event on July the 18th. So therefore, that's one of the areas that I know was captured there. I have talked to GotSport, and the release of players from teams has been worked on. I know, Ingrid, we have talked about this over and over in our meetings. I was also even informed by Robbie again today that process should be a lot easier coming up in the new registration event. So I'm not gonna hold my breath, but I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed, okay? But they said it's working. So therefore that should be working as far as going forward. That is on archiving players. But Robbie, you wanna go through the steps and show them about archiving players, please? Bobby? You're muted, Robert.
Sorry about that. So I'm gonna start out with coaches just for the sake of the coaches first. So what I'm gonna do is go to club manager coaches. So all of my active coaches, they're gonna show up in my list right here. Very easy process. Just hit the checkbox to select all of them. Then you have this archive coaches button right here. When you hit archive coaches, you hit archive again. That's gonna basically wipe out those coaches from your list right there. It does not delete their account. It just basically hides their account and it removes their coaching role to your club momentarily. So once you do that, the next process would be to either upload your current coaches or have your coaches register to your club through the program registration link. So that all basically depends on if you guys use GotSport for registrations at all, or if you use a third party. So if you use a third party, you'd be uploading your coaches. So as long as that first name, last name, and email address match exactly, that same coach account that is returning is going to be uploaded back into your coaches area and unarchived from your archived area. Same thing for program registrations. If you archive all your coaches and they register to your club through a coach registration, once they register, that is going to basically unarchive them. So they'll populate again, once again into your club management coaches area. If you want to skip that part, you can also go to your archives area on your left-hand side. You go to archives over here, then archive type is going to be user roles. You can hit submit right there. You'll be able to filter by either player, coach, or manager based upon who you're trying to find, first name, last name, whatever it may be, and hit search. At that point, whoever you're trying to unarchive at this point, you just click the checkbox next to this individual or multiple individuals, whatever it may be, then click unarchive users. That's basically going to unarchive them and populate them back into that club management area, whether it's a player, coach, or manager. As far as players go, this is the route we recommend for if you use a third-party registration system before you upload. So again, if you went to the top checkbox right here and select all your players in the collection, and you can archive your players, then whenever you register, you upload your player list for the new season, only those returning players are going to be showing in your club management player list. So that basically ensures you that only your active players are going to show up in your list so that you know who you're registering to the state.
Okay.
Hey, Alice, I think there's a good question in the chat here from Luis. If you have a coach you know will not be back next season, but the coach is currently involved in a national event, should they be archived? Maybe that's a good one for you, Robbie, if they're involved in regionals, nationals.
So whenever, I would say you would probably keep them in for now if they're on a current national roster. Then whenever that team is done or anything like that, that's at that point you could probably unarchive them. Because what that archive does is essentially removes their role from the club, from their account.
Right. If they're participating in any regional events right now,
it won't necessarily remove them from any rosters. It just all it does is remove that coach or player or manager role from that club organization role. So if I click on this player, go to roles, this organization role, that basically would be removed if I archive them.
Luis, I think you might just want to inform them that, hey, try not to submit a background check while you're still participating at these national events.
right.
And then Tom, good point on the direct registrar. Issue being with that, sometimes it's different individuals who are doing it. So some of these organizations, the president is the one doing it. But let me work with GotSoccer to see if there's some restrictions on who can register them with the event. That's a good point.
Okay.
And my second good point.
Pardon me?
And my
Maybe
second
it's not a good point, Tom.
My second good point. Can you print recreational pass and still show up to the game without verifying the player?
A recreational pass?
So if you need a pass for a recreational player, at that point you would need to submit them to the registration event.
No, that's not what I mean. What I mean, Alice said, we will not allow competitive players without birth verification. So does that mean you will allow recreational players without birth verification? And then what stops a bad coach or bad club from printing a recreational pass, which referee will not look at or see there's a difference, and then that kid unverified plays in the tournament?
When we discussed the recreational and in the registrar meeting, the registrars, we said that we go with competitive first and then recreational not. But we could go back and discuss it again. Like Joel said, we meet quite often, 2 or 3 times a week, so we can discuss it again because a recreational players, there will be a only recreational players who travel from club to club with passes, with leagues. That would mean the in-house, no. So we would have, that is one of the reasons I think we drill down on no recreational players at this time. But the league could require them to be verified. Your league could say that they have to be verified. In the league that they're playing in, you can say no recreational player play without being birth verified.
Alice, you're misunderstanding me. What stops a bad club from printing recreational pass for a competitive player so that they don't have to age verify? And then take that pass to a competitive game, and you guys don't get a competitive money.
I can't. Well, I can't. Well, if he prints the recreational pass, that recreational pass should not appear upon the roster. That player is got a recreational. So if he's competitive, you said he's gonna print a recreational pass, and he's gonna go to a competitive game.
All right.
You're not going to be able to add him to the competitive roster or match card because the age is not going to be verified. So it's going to, the system will prevent that player being added.
Thank you, Jackie. So as long as there's no way to add recreational player to competitive team,
Yeah,
or even better,
the competitive team designation prevents that recreational player being added without them being age verified.
So
or even better, just let's prevent printing passes for recreational players unless they're verified. If they want to play in-house, that's fine because you don't need to print the pass. But if you need to print the pass, you should be verified. And there should be a picture, because if I put my picture on a 14-year-old body, well, it'd be a worse player. But still, picture should be part of the verification process.
So Tom, based upon the roster we'll set up at the Florida level for competitive teams, so if they wanted to add a recreational player to a competitive team, that at that point, that player would have to be verified in order for them to be added to the roster.
See, in the past years, Tom, you could be added to a competitive team and not verified. So they could put a recreational player. This year, they cannot.
But they get their passes from the registration event. So
And they get the passes from the registration event. That's what Jackie was just saying. So in a way, you have stopped a player coming to a field with a recreational pass on a competitive team, because that player won't be able to be added to that team for that event that weekend, because he won't be birth verified.
Okay, if that works, that would be great.
Yeah, because if you recall, Tom, that's how we were going to do it at the beginning of last season. We were going to require all of the competitive players to have the headshot and age verified. But because it was a bit of a kerfuffle getting everybody ready, then we took away that restriction. But at the registrar meetings that we've been having, because each region has been represented, each region kind of felt that everybody's had a chance to get up and running, that we really needed to put that in place this season.
Thanks.
Okay. On to our next agenda item. We're down to making sure that the completion of reaffiliation by the club, the league, and the tournaments. I'm gonna allow the ladies in the office who've been working very diligent on this, Michelle and Jennifer, you all have any comments on this information?
The biggest thing that we would like to relay is to make sure that when the form is being completed, that it's completed and submitted by your AOR or your president, because they are the two responsible for any official transactions that take place between the club and FYSA. The other thing is to make sure that everybody is in there with proper roles set up. So if somebody is in there and is an AOR but doesn't have that role set up, the communication will miss them, because when we go in to send out communication through GotSport, we use the roles for direct communication, for direct information that we're trying to send. So if we set up the rule for the message to go out to all the AORs or all the registrars, and the person that's supposed to get that communication doesn't have that role designated, they won't receive the information. So that's kind of what we're finding out now as we're sending out all the communication the last few days. So make sure that the roles are set up and the emails are set up correctly for each of the people that are listed in your staff accounts or your club accounts. Making sure that you fill out the correct form. If you're a club, you use the club reaffiliation form. If you're a league, you use the league reaffiliation form. And if you're a tournament affiliate, you use that form. Don't think because you run a tournament as a club, you have to fill out that reaffiliation form. That's not how it works. So just make sure you're filling out the correct forms. And then lastly, make sure your payment information is in there because the deadline will be July 17th. And between now and July 17th, Michelle and I are going in to verify risk management has been completed so that we can start moving these forms through the approval process. Michelle, do you have anything to add?
Quick question, Jennifer. This is Marino. How you doing?
Hi, Marina.
Why would the system let a registrar complete the affiliation, put payment in, and send them an email, you have completed your affiliation, if it's not correct? I did it today as a registrar, and he did the whole thing, put credit card, put everything in there, and I got a message, you have finished your affiliation, you're now affiliated.
Well, Robbie can probably speak to this a little bit better because it's, we don't have the ability to limit who puts the form in. Unless there's something that I'm not aware of. We don't have the capability to do that yet.
So Jennifer, the way around that would be to remove it from the dashboard and send that link directly to the presidents or the AORs directly.
Yeah, because once you go in as a registrar and try to do your background and all that, the first thing that comes out, it says register your affiliation, renew you or reaffiliate. So as a registrar, that's the first thing I did, and then I went to do my background and all that stuff. And he told me I was basically the club was already affiliated.
So
Robbie,
basi-
that's an interesting idea, and yeah, let's look into that. Maybe removing it. You know, our idea in putting it available for everybody is obviously to get this filled out, right? You know, we want to make sure everybody gets it filled out and want to have the availability. So I appreciate that, Marino. Let's look at potentially removing it being available for everyone and sending it directly.
Okay.
Okay, the second question relating to that is last year, for instance, in the club, the treasurer never goes to the field, never be in contact with the players. She was allowed to only do the background check. She didn't have to do SafeSport and heads up. You just finished saying that unless everybody, all the agents do that, the affiliation will be incomplete.
Yeah, yes. Essentially, if you're part of the club, you are to complete all the requirements.
Yeah, I'm not aware of why there would be exceptions in the past. They kind of come in a package deal. Background check, SafeSport, heads up. I mean, it's as Jennifer refers to it as it's the requirements.
Okay, I'm just asking because last year those two people didn't have to do it, and that this year you just mentioned it again. I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. Thank you.
Particularly on the SafeSport, that is information that needs to be seen by everybody in the community. I'm sure Jennifer is going to touch on over 18 players momentarily, which is another monumental change, but federally mandated. So
just to finich up, and I won't bother anymore. So the agent of record has to go back in and do the reaffiliation again, or is it okay the way it is now for my club?
Michelle and I every morning we go in there and we go through them. If there's any question about the way it's been submitted, we'll reach out individually to each club.
Thank you.
Is there any more questions regarding the reaffiliations? With Jennifer, we're down to background check, SafeSport, and CDC. Carlton had a question. There's a question that he's saying that if a coach change his email or within his new profile, but Carlton, one of the things is SafeSport, you got to make sure you can maintain that same email unless they're gonna have you start taking it, complete the new course all over again. So that coach is gonna have to make sure that email address is the same one that he had on file with SafeSport. So Jennifer probably can touch on that, but that question just came up in the chat. that's good that he changed it and we're being notified, but the email address with the FYSA, that'll be the way you picked up from.
Right. So what would they have to do? I guess I'll ask the question differently. If they're changing their method of communication, their email address.
Jennifer, you
So
can,
I'm gonna touch on that when I get to go through the SafeSport.
Okay.
right. So background check is first up, Jennifer.
Right. But it will be automatically updated on GotSport, right? From the archive.
Well, Matt said from GotSports told you yes.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
This answer response in the chat was yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
as soon as sorry, I'm Matt. I work with Robbie. We've got sport. As soon as the upload is done, it will update the data coming on. It's looking at the most recent. But you've got to, what I would recommend doing is, obviously, when you're uploading from a third party, make sure when you're looking at it is, if you want everything to match, so there's no duplicates coming in, it's looking at first name, last name, obviously for a coach, email address. So if any of those do change and aren't different, then you would have to use the merge user section in GotSport.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, so moving on to the background checks. It's super important that you guys as registrars make sure that not only does the staff, board members, required people within your organization have their background check, but you also want to make sure that every coach that works in your club, whether they work competitive, in-house, travel rec, whatever they want to call it, everyone does a background check. You also need to make sure that all your team managers have background checks. And really, when we're putting them all together, every coach, manager, volunteer, staff member, board members, everybody has to have a background check, SafeSport, and Heads Up. Those are 3 requirements that are tied together related to the, working in their capacities within FYSA. The biggest thing that people miss with the managers, because I was surprised how many managers didn't have all the requirements done when they came to some of the state events. The biggest issue is especially if you have a coach, that there's one coach and a team manager. If that coach gets into trouble on the field and is removed from the field, officially that team manager is the other official on the roster, and that team manager would have to step in on the sideline. So you want to make sure that that person has all their requirements done. Anybody that's listed on the roster has any access to communication with the kids or the parents, any information about team rosters. You want to make sure those people have all requirements done, especially the background check. Regarding the SafeSport created a new platform this year. It is causing a little bit of confusion and some problems, but we'll get through it and send out as much communication as we can as it becomes available to us. SafeSport changed the ability for anyone to change their profile name or email or any of the main identifiers. So if they don't make sure they have their legal name in SafeSport and they've used a nickname or a shortened version of their name, they will have to email SafeSport directly to ask SafeSport to make that change. What everybody sometimes forgets is SafeSport is a federally run program and it's federally mandated. So with the new platform, they don't allow as many changes. You can change your address, you can change your phone number, but you can't change your name or your email without going directly to SafeSport. You also need to make sure that their name is in their legal name. Always legal name, so it matches what they put in for background checks on the FYSA side. That's a lot of times why these get hung up. If there's an issue where they have their legal name in there, they believe they have everything that it should connect and it doesn't, they have the ability to upload these certificates into the system. They need to make sure they're uploading the actual certificate, not a screenshot, not a screenshot of the website or a screenshot of a statement saying I did it. It has to be the actual certificate number because each certificate number has an identifying ID number. And that is how we track them. If we're ever asked for proof, that's our proof. So make sure they understand that they need to do it the proper way. Same with Heads Up. Heads Up seems to be working pretty good now. We are not having any issues with that getting backed up. There is no test at the end of the training. I know it says that there's a test, but there isn't. As soon as you complete the questions during the course of the training and you're done, it automatically should update the account. So those are the biggest things that I would urge you to pay attention to, and make sure when you're communicating with your membership that they understand that if they don't follow the proper procedures, it will delay their approval process. And that will have an impact on you being able to put them on a roster and getting them into the game. So anytime you guys have any questions or issues, just feel free to reach out. Any questions on those items?
Jennifer, we
Okay.
have the Safe Sport for the U18s.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do next. So the new one that I know has gotten a lot of people is the Safe Sport for the U18 players and older. Again, this is a federally mandated program. This is something that we are required to do. So we need to make sure this is done. Players will not be able to be rostered unless they complete this training. It is set up in the system so that if the player turns 18 during the course of your season, they will be required to take the training up front. So that means if you have a player that doesn't turn 18 till December, but you need to get them completed and rostered in for the start of August, they're going to have to complete the training before they get rostered in August. It's just something we're going to have to get them all used to. They're going to have to the players, you're going to get a lot of questions from parents about why this is being mandated. I would send them straight to the Safe Sport code so that they can read and understand themselves. You want to make sure that parents have a full understanding of why this has been put in place, and pretty much if you go to the website, it has all the information. It even has some guidance for parents to work through on understanding the code. So any questions regarding that, I would definitely send them to the Safe Sport website.
I have a question, just wondering if you knew the answer. This is Jennifer Caputo. So when we've done U18 Safe Sports with MLS Next, when the kids would do it and they're not 18 yet, there was a statement the parent had to sign. Do you know if that's going to be a requirement if the kids take it before they're 18?
It's my understanding that if they're turning 18 during that season, that we didn't have to have that statement in there. It's not in there. There is a statement that it is a requirement for the U18s and above, and that it's specifically, there's a specific rule set up in the system for that group.
Okay, and one other thing, this is regarding just Heads Up and coaches. I had a lot of my recreational coaches not want to do the Heads Up because they already did it in another sport. And is there a way they can just upload their previous certificate, or are they going to redo it again for FYSA?
Unfortunately, they're going to have to just go through GotSport and do it through their account. I know it's similar, but it's set up differently for the various youth sports. So for it to link, they will have to do it again, because the training varies from some of the youth sports to others, or high school versus soccer versus football. So just to keep everybody in compliance, it's not that long. I want to say it's 20 minutes. So they will just have to take it through their GotSport account.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
The only other thing that I'll go back and reiterate about the Safe Sport is I had put it in an email. The other thing that I need you guys to really push out to your membership is when they're taking their Safe Sport, only take one training per season. I had somebody submit all 4 in one day the other day. So I had to send him an email and let him know, hey, sorry, you just took 4 years worth of training in one day. Therefore, next season, you're going to have to go back and do the 90-minute training again. So make sure they understand it's only one course per season. And it follows that cycle that I put out in the message, which is the 90-minute course on the first year, refresher 1, refresher 2, refresher 3. Then the 4th year, you cycle back to the 90-minute course. So please help us get that message out. I just hate to see coaches, having to redo that long 90-minute course every year if they don't need to.
And the
Any
software's been, sorry to jump in, but the software has been really improved. All they have to do is follow direction. When you scroll down, it literally tells you start here. You don't have to think, you just have to press the button and do the course that it's guiding you to do.
Thank you, Jackie. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Jennifer.
I think there's some questions in the chat.
Yeah.
So
We do have a question. Oh, we do have a couple questions. So yes, when we say per season, we're talking about the seasonal year. So it's from between
August,
the June 1st time period through July of the next year. Coaches should finish all their requirements after they're re-uploaded. You don't want to do it before you archive them, or you'll archive everything. Any other questions? Thank you, everybody. Alice?
Okay, thank you, everyone. Now we're down to one of the things that Joel mentioned at the very beginning, because since probably in 1st of March, there's Melissa Howard, Jackie Cannon, Ingrid Spencer, Michelle Cook in office, Jennifer Murphy, Sarah, who has been very helpful and still working, is in the office. We've been working on an FYSA registration guide. And this guide is going to be a guide that is going to be changing weekly, daily, whenever we get updates from GotSports. And we will have it posted out for you all to use, for all your registrars or anyone to use on June 30th. It is put together now. Sarah is working very hard, a communication person within the office. She's been working tirelessly along with all her other responsibilities, put it in order, lining it up where it all looked the same from everybody's notes that was sent in, and making sure that we read the same format. And this, at the end of this week, we are to review it and have it ready and posted by June 30th, where all the registrars and any staff member who want to go in that want to perform a certain procedure in GotSports will be able to. We may miss something, but we have all the experts in all your various areas look at this and think of things. We think of things every week. We was meeting once a week. Our meeting's supposed to last an hour, and I think some of them may have gone almost to 2 hours, that we put information in and discussing various items. So I look forward to having this posted on June 30th. It will be posted on FYSA website. We will send that information out to all of you all. And I want to thank these ladies now and forever for all the help they have been put in, effort to put into this manual. But like I said, if there is something missing, don't get all upset, just send it to us. We will double check it out with GotSports, because they have been a partner in this process as well. And we will add it to the manual after we have tested, make sure we do screenshots. So we hope this guide will assist each one of our registrars across the state to make your life a little easier this year in registering your players. Remember, registration opens on July 18th. And you can start printing rosters and passes and direct registration, which has been described to you today. And we have a few minutes left just a few minutes. Robbie's going to give a quick overview on where you can go out to GotSports, where they have put together also a manual that will help you. Just some of the things you only probably did once last year, you got to remember to do it again this year. And this is what our guide would do, but they also have put some things together. So Rob, if you want to go out and point to where they can find that information, that it would assist them in hopefully making this season of year a lot smoother than last.
no problem. Can you see my screen right here? Alice, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so what we did, we also have our, a more generic version of a season transition guide. For the first thing, if you guys weren't aware, on your dashboard, there's 2 areas where you guys can see recent updates. So this recent updates tab over here on the right-hand side of your dashboard. It's also on your left-hand side of your menu over here. What this is, it's basically kind of like a mini article of anything that we get added to the system. The system is ever evolving. Enhancements are being made every day, every week, to give you guys a better user experience. So it's never a finished product. It's always, we're always adding stuff in. So as we add stuff in, the location of the button might change. Something might happen. So we try to, keep this updated as often as we can. So it might just be worth something to check out, maybe every week or something, as we get, going through. So this is an area where you guys can see, basically additions to the system, enhancements to the system that you didn't have before. So also on this page, you guys have this support button right here. Not this big not this big blue one, but you have this little one, little hyperlink right here. This little support button will lead to our generic support Zendesk section. Then what you're going to do, you're going to scroll down just a little bit. Then you're going to see a tab that says preparing for new season. And so what we have here is basically a recommended guideline to follow whenever you're transitioning into the new season. So we have an area for users of a third-party registration. So those that do not use GotSport for player registration, could be Demisphere, Sports Engine, anything, any of those other third-party ones. So if you click right here, this would just be kind of like a step-by-step guide to follow of a recommended path of our best practices. So the first thing you'll see right here is a little overview, like a little Q&A of what to expect when you're uploading players into the system. So, will you have to create new teams? No, your teams are going to stay the same, and all your teams are going to age up automatically on August 1st. So you don't have to create new teams or to update the team ages right now to the new year, because if you update a U12 team to U13 right now, that system views it as a U13 currently, and on August 1st, it's going to turn it into a U14 when it really should be U13. So you do not have to update your team ages within GotSport. Whenever you're uploading players into the system, so any players returning, that were in GotSport last year, as long as that first name, last name, gender, and date of birth match exactly, it will not generate a new player account for that player. That existing player account will come into your system. So that's the same. So if they're returning to whether they're returning to your system, your club, or if you got a registration from a player that played somewhere else or has never played before. The only time a new player account will be generated is if that existing first name, last name, gender, and date of birth is completely unique and an account has not been created for that person yet. So basically a little Q&A of what happens, same thing for coaches and managers when you're uploading. Then you get into the kind of the generic stuff, logging in, how to add club administrators, how to update their user permissions, stuff like that. Then general club manager, how to, for users of third-party system, it's recommended to archive all of your players first, then upload your current players. So that way you're only looking at your current players for the new year. Little article of how to manually create a player, not the recommended path, but if you need to get someone in that day, it's a good process to either create or, search for that player to get them added to your club. How to add a player photo, how to add documents to that player, etc. Same thing for coaches. Archive your coaches, upload your coaches, and create new coaches. Same thing for managers. So teams, you can archive your teams if you wish to. Just really remove that team from your club or from your view. Another thing that's new to this year that wasn't there came in a little bit later last year. You can reset your team. So anybody with a player role to your team. So if I go to teams right here, you have the ability to reset these. So this boys of 11 players, that's 11 players with a player role to that team. So before you start building rosters for the new year, it might be worth just to kind of clear this out. Hit reset team for coach, manager, and player. I'm just going to do players for right now. Hit save, and when I refresh, it's added to a queue right now, so it might take a second here. So it moved down to 0. So it went from 11 to 0. So it just removes that player role from that team. Then when they're added back to the registration event roster, that player role is recreated to that team. And after that, we also have this sync button. So again, select the teams right here, sync player count. So anybody on a current roster for that team will be added to that team's player list. So we'll update from last season to this season. And some also new permissions, how to toggle a roster lock. This will basically lock the roster from your coaches and managers from editing. How to team lock, so they can't edit the name, competitive level, gender, anything like that, age. So that's all locked. So you can lock it. So basically you can lock that access from your coaches and managers from being able to edit the team information. And this is their last year. You can also limit their ability to print the ID cards and rosters on their own. So if that's something that you guys primarily take the initiative of, you can turn that ability off for those coaches and managers right there. Then the same thing is available for for the people that do use us for player registration. So steps to prepare for new season. Really, the main difference is you're going to be, whenever you're in a club managed up players area, you're just going to be filtering it by a particular program for the players that you want to see. So whether it's building rosters and roster builder, you can have that player program filter registered in fall 2022. Those are going to give your players for the fall 22 season. So your current players, so you can roster them teams. Or anybody, and you can also filter by players that are not registered for fall 2022. So players that are not registered to you, you can filter by not registered. So any players in your system, you can get rid of those players. You can archive those players to get them out of your review. So that way you're not mistakenly, registering those players, even because they might be playing for someone else. So, that's another, step to it, because you have your articles of how to create your program, how to message your registrants, how to open your registration. And it's really the same thing, adding players, adding player photo, adding documents, same thing for your coaches. Then the printing of your official players and rosters passes, it's going to be the same scenario as last year. You're just going to have to go to Club Manager or Roster Builder, go to the 22-23 FYSA registration event, and you're going to have the ability to print the rosters and cards from that event only.
Okay.
So that's really it from my end. If anyone from the FYSA office wants to finish up, I think we have some chats coming in. So again, we get those answered as well.
I think Matt answered Ingrid her question there.
Yeah.
Joel, do you have
hopefully-
anything?
Oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna see if you had anything else, but yeah, it looks like Matt entered it. Yeah, that age update continues to be 8-1.
That's all I have.
And the one thing I want to mention, though that team is going to be, your registration event opens on July 18th. The teams registered will be to that event will be viewed as the team age set for 22-23, because the event is set to 22-23. So if you have a current U12 team registered to that 22-23 event, within Roster Builder for the FYSA registration event, that team is going to be viewed as U13, because that's going to be the league age.
Yeah, just as Robbie says, it's only going to show on club management teams as this year's 21-2022 event age. But every event that you register that has 22-2023 as their event year group, that's what it will go in as. So just make sure if you are creating new teams, you create them as a 21-2022 season. Other than that, they should show as a 22-2023 age group team.
And also, this meeting was recorded and it will be shared with the FYSA office for them to share with you. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to them. Because we're going to be doing this a couple more times with the other regions. And they'll be making, if they ever want to reference this will be a good tool as well.
Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you guys all for the time tonight. I appreciate it, and we'll I'll be talking soon.
Thank you all. Thank you,
Good
everyone.
evening,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Have a good
Thank
night,
you.
Thank
everybody.
you.
All right, thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining
Good
everybody.
night, everyone. Thank you. Good job, guys.